Right, surely we pray it's going to be a better day, a better week, and of course a better month for all of us out there. This is Rock City 101.9 FM here in the city of Abeokuta. Yes, and indeed, this is the voice of the people. Daybreak Show Citizens Forum. It's on. Quickly, let me just again reiterate this or re-echo this. Those who are managing traffic situation along the Abiola way, it's very important that when you are diverting traffic, there should be something to indicate so that those using it, both those crossing and the drivers, will be aware. Unfortunately, there was a fatal head-on collision this morning as a result of that diversion between Olonshogo and the Iyano mortuary end of that Abiola Way. Road has been diverted. Those who are coming to Ashiro and those going towards Iyano mortuary, that's the road that's the side of the road you use. There is no instruction, there is nothing telling drivers that a diversion. So be very careful, and we urge traffic managers and even those who are working, the road constructors, to please indicate that there is a diversion along that axis. Dele Ayodo is my name. And I am Tobi, Joseph. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be having and I honor the citizens from this May, and we'll be looking at the tax regime. It's a whole lot of situation here when we talk about generation of revenue as the state aims to become a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse in the whole of Lagos in terms of internal generating revenue. One issue beyond the issue of IPR, that is internal generated revenue, is the issue of tax. A lot has been said about the fact that a lot of people are outside the tax system. But beyond the issue of non-payment of tax, there are also issues of multiple taxation inside of myriads of government agencies and departments. But beyond these issues or the challenges of collection of tax, it would be appropriate for us also look at the fact that this issue of a tax regime has affected a lot of businesses, especially small and medium scale enterprises, popularly called SMEs. And of course, what about foreign investors who usually troop in to Ogun State to do business? It is on record that Ogun State is the #1 destination of choice when it comes to investors. So when they approach the Ministry of Trade and Investment at the federal level, investors usually actually pick Ogun State as one of the states that they would like to place their business. Well, how have we made doing business in Ogun State easy for these investors? Have we streamlined all the necessary paperwork and, of course, the prerequisites needed to actually situate or set up a business here? What about the issue of tax? How much do we tax these investors? How much do we tax workers? How much do we tax small businesses, medium-scale enterprises before we go after these are all the issues we're looking at this morning. Yeah, quickly, Toby, before I introduce my guest, it is important to situate this discussion this morning appropriately. Yes, Ogun is being described in different glowing terms as one state that is doing well in its ability to generate, increase its IDR drive, and of course industrial expansion. But the truth about economic growth is that there can never be a meaningful one when it is one-sided. If you continue to have industrial growth without carrying the MSMEs, that's the micro, small, and medium enterprises along, then you won't have the desired effect. That is why this morning you have two gentlemen who are involved in tax. They are professionals and experts in their own rights, tax collection, analysis, and of course the management of the MSMEs. We want to find out the effect of the Ogun tax regime
and how it has also affected the ease of doing business in the state. First, let me introduce Bamidele Stephen. Bamidele Stephen has been involved in the MSMEs management for decades now. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
And of course, we have a tax consultant, a member of the CITN, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Dr. Adeoye. Good morning, Dr. Adeoye.
Good morning, thank you.
All right. Let me start from you, Dr. Adeoye. No doubt, Ogun deserves all its praises for the tax drive. When you want to look at what it has done with it in terms of its ability not to solely depend on the federal allocation. However, if you look at conformity to this, what will you say as a consultant?
Well, I would say that over the years, the state government have tried to increase the IGR through taxation. Nevertheless, the conversation about tax cannot be isolated to a state. So we have to look at the law governing tax regime all over the country, not isolating Ogun State. And so what we need to do is to look at what is the responsibility of federal and state when it comes to taxation. There are demarcation on what you can collect. And so these have actually been a problem across the country, not only in Ogun State, where you see state government pursuing people to collect taxes that are actually supposed to be collected by the federal government. And so there are 8 taxes that the federal is to collect, which is company income tax, withholding tax on resident of Abuja, non-resident individuals, petroleum profit tax, education
Sorry,
tax,
the holding tax.
withholding
Withholding
tax
tax, sorry, is it meant for people in Abuja alone?
for federal government, what federal can collect,
Okay.
withholding
But the
tax
state can also.
on companies, resident of Abuja, and non-resident individuals. So that's federal. Now you have petroleum profit tax for federal too, education tax, capital gain tax on resident of FCT and corporate bodies and non-resident individual. Then you have value added tax, stamp duties on corporate bodies and FCT resident. And the last one is personal income tax of army, police, and residents of the Federal Capital Territory and staff of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Where I have problem with the federal government is collection of taxes of police and the army by the Federal Inland Revenue. That's very wrong. And that's the challenge that we have with many states where you have laws that are not reasonable coming up because there is no true federalism. Let's look at
No, well, why do you say that tax, that collection is?
it's wrong. And
Well,
I will give you an example. Police, they reside in your state. The army, they reside in your state. The infrastructure they are going to use will come from that state.
but they are not permanent residents.
Yes, if you are not permanent resident, and that's the problem with database. If you are posted to Ogun State, for example, for 6 months, the taxes you pay should go to that state because you are going to use the road in that state, you are going to use the water. So that's the challenge I have with the federal government. And at CITN level and at ICANN level, at the board level, we are working on all of this to see how we can persuade the federal government to ensure that true federalism is reflected on the taxes that federal can collect. For example, I was listening to the Minister of Finance at the platform recently. You discover that some states are even doing more than what the federal is doing. In the whole of 2015 or 2016, the federal government spent 19 billion on capital projects, while states spent 20-something billion on capital projects, the whole of the federation. So the issue now is the federal government does not even have a constituency. You don't even know who they are taking care of. So we need to streamline all of this. And then when we do that, the state government, we can then question them when they trespass on taxes that are outside their own regime. For example, the controversy about consumption tax, which I know we may still talk about at the end of the day, which is as a result of lack of true federalism that we have. There is no expert in taxation all over the country that will tell you there is any difference between value-added tax and consumption tax.
Right.
Because you are talking of 5% on what you have consumed, which is VAT too. And in the past, what we used to have is sales tax. And because of the military power then, the state government, military administrator agreed that federal government should collect these taxes and then return them to the states. And then in 1993, they came up with value-added tax decree. And that is now becoming what everybody should share, both federal, state, and the local government. But you discover that states now are now promulgating laws on consumption tax. One hand, they are right. On the other hand, they are wrong. So, but we won't discuss further until we now look at how does taxes affect individuals and corporate bodies in the states. The challenge we've had with all the states without exception, Ogun State not exempted, is that we focus more on, like stressing up the cow that is giving you the milk rather than increase the number of cows that gives you the milk.
So that you can have an increased
Exactly.
production of milk.
Tax laws that are archaic, we still have them. I was looking at development levy today. Development levy is 100 naira per year for a person. That's too small. 100 naira per year. If you take 1,000 naira, it's convenient for people. And then other taxes are also streamlined so that you don't have double taxation. But the question people will ask you, can we see what the government is doing with the money in line with Chapter 2 of the Constitution?
Let me pick it up from that development levy. Do you think states have the right to, on their own, increase the figure you have to pay? That's one. And then two, the modalities for collecting them. Can they just come with any arbitrary means of collecting those development tax in particular? Because I know that here in Ogun State, it's not 100 naira development levy. It is according to, okay, let me use the word whims and caprices of the man who has come to see what they want to play the development tax on, and then they just come and give you a figure.
No. I just mentioned archaic tax laws and rates. Just like you have the Corporate Affairs Commission in the past, annual returns 500 naira. The state government does not have power to actually increase taxes to be paid, because even the personal income tax, the least is 7% and the highest is 24%. This was in line with the the new tax law, and we have the joint tax board. But what we are saying is that the state government, the federal government need to come together and review some of these laws that are archaic.
Mr. Stephen, I know you have an ample experience, practical experience, what I call reality of what these taxes do with the MSMEs because you relate with them constantly. Will you say the tax regime with all these laws Dr. Adi has mentioned is fair on the MSMEs with the prevalent situation?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ayodo. First and foremost, let me quickly mention here that everything I say here is evidence-based. As you are aware, we have worked with these micro, small, and medium enterprises, and then when it has to do with the issue of taxes and tax administration, just like the doctor said, I think we have to look at it holistically. However, I still want to believe strongly that each state has its own tax administration system. The how taxes are being collected is as important as what you want to see at the end of the day. There is no point trying to say, okay, you now want to levy people without actually giving them ample information of what you're using these taxes for. What are those things that they also want to see at the end of the day? So I think from your intro, we talk about ease of doing business, which for me is germane. The German Agency for International Cooperation in Nigeria has its own objective. How do we improve the performance of MSMEs vis-a-vis the big ones that we have in Nigeria? Here we did a lot of studies. since inception in 2012 in Ogun State. And I think in 2013, the response we got from MSMEs is actually overwhelming, because there's a question that said, do you know that it's your civic responsibility to pay taxes? Over 90% of them said yes. They are well aware. They said, in fact, some of them said, don't worry, you understand. So they know. Now, there's another question to it that ask, if you know, why is it that you are not, I mean, you really do not want to pay taxes? And the question that comes again is, you see, it's not as if we do not know, but the truth of the one we have paid, we cannot see, any meaningful thing that the government is doing with it. But sometimes in 2014-15, the same question was asked. And you see, a lot of them said, yes, we can pay taxes, possibly because they have seen some development, they've seen bridges and people actually. So for us as a development partner, we're looking at voluntary compliance. How is it possible that without actually locking shops, without actually making the MSME also go underground at some point? Why is it, how is it possible for the state government to educate the people, let the people also see reason? And it's also interesting to know that, for the ease of doing business, a lot of people will tell you that, look, I know XYZ number of people who are not paying taxes. You understand? Our research shows that close to 40-45% are not even in the tax net. Those who are in the tax net are the people who are continually, you understand, being, should I say, burdened or overburdened. And some will say, look, people are coming from X, Y, and Z. We don't even know who is collecting what. So again, that brings us to the issue of jurisdiction. Somebody in Itoku market will say somebody is coming from one local government, the other person is coming from this area. So I think, just like the doctor said, I just want to a bit disagree to say each state can actually, with the issue of tax administration, your collection method is also very important. With Ogun State, we can give them credit to say, at least to some extent, capacities have been built over the time. We do not hear a case of tax revenue collectors being beaten up, again. But again, maybe subsequently we're also going to discuss more about multiplicity and duplicity of taxes. Question that you ask. I think IGR, if you look at it over the years, is like a systemic way of collecting money or funds by the government to meet the need in terms of administration. We've had over time people will say the government is not doing anything, and you also agree with me that the money that has been generated ordinarily is supposed to be used for, the development of the state and possibly for the welfare, you understand, of the state as it were. So if you say deliberate, yes, I would say there's need to always look for opportunities where the government think there is, at least to be able to also make more. You can also hear about in the news that Ogun State government has done well, in terms of improving the revenue base of the state. The other aspect that you ask on what can the government do, a year ago, a committee was set up. We call it the Tax Harmonization Committee, headed by the Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Planning. And this committee did excellently well in the task and assignment that was given to them. The objective is just to see how they can review some of this, just like the doctor mentioned, archaic taxes. The revenue heads, at times some are not even moribund, they are not useful anymore. You see levies of 5 naira, 10 naira, you understand, they are not, relevant anymore. So this committee came up with a draft of what they have done in terms of reviewing all the taxes at the local government, at the state, and to also see even within the MDAs, because I also know that MDAs are also saddled with responsibility of also generating revenue. And how is it possible to say, okay, like you have a document that shows, or for instance, a bill, and I think that bill was excellently worked on. A clean bill was also sent, and there is an executive bill that has been sent to the House of Assembly, the tax harmonization bill. I know Lagos State has a semblance of it, Kaduna State, the same thing, and I think Ogun State, in their wisdom, have decided to look at how can they perform well, because some of this law that you said, that I talked about, if it's tested in the court, people will also win if you challenge the government. So because Ogun State don't want to fall into this kind of trap, they decided to do a thorough job, and I think this has been sent to the House of Assembly, waiting for assent. I wouldn't know, because the last time they said this, that's gone through the first reading, and since then we've not had anything. So in the area of what can the government do, the government has started the process of doing something well by one looking at those laws, looking at those areas that people are complaining about, to say, look, you collect multiple taxes. And in fairness, there are some of those taxes that they call multiple that are not actually multiple. It is just that the people are not well informed about what it is. So it is when you now call people together, just like I told you in the report we had, over 90% are willing, much more willing to pay taxes. You understand? But how is it possible that you inform them to let them know this is exactly what you are supposed to pay? If anybody comes around to say this, please say no. And I think the state government has also educated, or build the capacity of their staff to make sure that, of course, we wear a badge. Let people know that they are coming from the government. And we've also had cases where people use nail stop. You want to stop for haulage, for instance. You're coming from maybe from the farm, you're carrying cassava, you're carrying farm produce, and you see somebody using nail spike on the road. But I think that is also something that the government has taken on to ensure that that doesn't work again. So if you ask me, I think the government has set the tone, but what we expect now is that that law, that bill that is in the House of Assembly, I think they have to look at it again.
Have you been able to quantify the effects of that taxation over the city or revenue creating agencies, government, the multiplicity of this taxation on MSMEs?
Yeah, if I get you correctly, you're asking if we have.
Be able to quantify the effect of this multiple taxation
Mm.
or duplicity of revenue generating agencies collecting these taxes on MSMEs?
Yes, and I give you the recent report that we have, which is the 2015 enterprise survey that we did. As against what we have in 2012 and 2013, I think it is better now, because before we came on board, there was this issue of multiplicity and duplicity of taxes, that even some of this MSME cannot even work. You understand? I think it was about the time, in fairness, it was about the time that there was this demolition of buildings. You understand? There's road construction. So a lot of people were already attaching the road construction, the demolition, to the fact that, look, we cannot work again. So it was very difficult to separate. Somebody whose shop has been demolished is already saying government is doing this, doing that. But of course, it's for the benefit of the state. But now, for small, micro, and business, small enterprises in the state, if you look at duplicity and multiplicity of taxes, by extension, some of these people are okay. Some, without mentioning name, are also saying, how is it possible that I sell, I mean, maybe I'm a small trader, for instance, and you are charging me XYZ. And the truth of the matter is that we have what we call presumptive taxes, that the person who is selling can also say, I can pay XY. They ask you. It's not as if they're not asking, but I think what is absent is that officials are also not educating the people. Like I used to mention to them that there should be an avenue where you are able to educate the people, let them know what exactly they are paying. So in terms of quantification, it's relative. I cannot say this is what it is or this is not what it is.
Dr. Adeoye, if you look at that, now juxtapose that with your state, do you see a way government can find around encapsulating, capturing those who are taxing, who are not currently paying tax?
Yes, I agree. Number one thing we need to clear out here is that you have salary earners and civil servants paying more taxes than businessmen. Most of the politicians that you have ruling us today, ask them, how much taxes have you paid in the last 10 years? You will discover that the permanent secretary has paid taxes more than the so-called billionaires that we have. So this is a problem. Now, this is not difficult to do at all. We have the BVN. You can work with the Central Bank of Nigeria. You have the Bureau of Land and Survey. You have certificate of occupancy in the name of people. You have this mansion that worth 200 million. And then we look at the taxes that you have paid, and this is not inheritance. Then prove to us that you have paid what you should pay. So that at the state level. Now, you are talking of corporate bodies by the Federal Inland Revenue. part of what I know the federal government is doing under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan for 2017 to 2020 is to ensure that any company that want to receive payment from the government, they will subject you to scrutiny to check if you have paid your taxes. They will also check that the directors have paid their taxes in their respective states. I think that's complementary. That's going on. I think a circular will be issued from Ministry of Finance to Federal Inland Revenue and all agencies and MDAs. So that's fine. At the state level, what the government needs to do is to ask questions. If you take a look at Ibarra GRA, for example, do a census, take, the numbers of people that have houses there, check what they do, where they work. If they are in business, then ask for their taxes. So at the end of the day, you will just discover that the big people are the ones not paying taxes. If you work anywhere, your taxes is deducted from your salary. You work with government, they take it at source. For example, I think Ogun said, I don't know what the salary figure is now. If it's about 3 billion per month, I can assure you not less than 300 million goes to internal revenue as taxes from these people. Now check the big people who are earning billions. How much taxes have they paid? And you discover that we are not serious. He who comes to equity must come with clean hand. In the past, up to 2011, governors and deputies, they are exempted from taxes. President and vice president are exempted. And then you are coming to the people to pay taxes. But that has changed now from 2012. So I think the elite, they are the big problem. You have big houses, you are not paying taxes. You are riding Range Rover, you are riding Land Cruiser, and then you are not paying taxes. And the car that you are riding is 38 million or 40 million naira. And then we check your tax record, your tax is the same amount with a director in the ministry who is earning less than 200,000 a month. Do you understand? So this is where lack of sincerity comes to play. And then you discover that if they serve assessment to such a big man, he's going to shout and say, oh, they are persecuting me and all of those things. And then if he's a party member, then somebody say, oh, how dare you trouble that man? So we are not sincere. And this does not happen in great nations in the Western world. And we need to address all of this. For companies that are not in the tax net, the federal government need to invest more in technology. If you have bank accounts, you receive credit, you get alert on your phone, telecom organization, you have the NCC, you can get all of this through the central bank. You can tell the government, I need a record of alert into any bank account of corporate bodies from 500,000 and above every week. And then you look at it and then you push that to Federal Inland Revenue. Check your record. Have they paid any VAT at all? Have they filed any account? It's just that we are not serious as a people. The database that we need, we already have through telephone, through BVN. Yes, people say, okay, they keep cash at home now, but that money must come from somewhere. Somebody must have been debited somewhere before somebody can get a credit of cash in his house. Do you understand? So I want to believe that we are just not serious. In the US, if your account is to be debited with about $10,000, before the cash gets to your hand, FBI, they're already outside. They will trail you to your house, check if you have been blackmailed, if you have any issue. So why are we not doing that? So you only hear when they want to deal with somebody. You don't hear the use of this information for effective governance, and that's where we have problem.
Dr. Adeoye, earlier you talked about areas where federal government can collect taxes.
Yes.
I also want you to talk on that of state, and then I want to talk on specifics. For instance, the land use charge
Yes.
is a form of taxation, and then we also talked of the administration and collection of these taxes. Can we have your own opinion about this? First, let's have areas where, let's know areas where states can collect taxes.
For state government, we have 11 taxes that states can collect. Number one is personal income tax in respect of pay as you earn, payee. They take that from your salary. Direct assessment, you approach the tax authority by yourself, you fill a form, and then you assess and you pay. The second one is withholding tax on individual only and partnership. 3 is pool and betting and lottery and casino tax. You see Baba Jebu and all of this. You need to ask the government, how much taxes are you getting from people that play this lottery? Number 4, road taxes, where you now see local government, infiltrating into all of this. Then you have the capital gain tax on individual, stamp duty on instruments executed by individual, not companies. And then you have business premises levy in respect of urban area as defined by each state, with a maximum of 10,000 registration and 5,000 per annum. For rural area is 2,000 for registration and 1,000 per annum. So I think people are not educated. If they give you an assessment in rural area, and you all know how to define rural area, electricity is one, water and road. And so you give me an assessment that is meant for urban area, I can't object that. So the issue now is that the tax authority, they need to be informed, they need to be educated, and don't give taxes that are not applicable to specific persons. So the other tax is you have development levy, which is 100 naira per annum for individual. To be honest with you, that's too small with the current exchange rate and the purchasing power, which is applicable to government and individual. How much is a bag of cement to do a road, to get asphalt and all those things? Then you have naming of streets.
Sorry, Dr. Adeoye, this development levy thing, I hear students being asked to pay development levy, and then people in the market being asked to pay development. If as a student I'm paying development levy and my parents, when I say student, I'm talking about primary school now, and my parents are also paying that same thing, how can we justify that?
No, infants are not to pay
I
taxes.
can tell you as we speak that so many primary school pupils who have development fee or levy as part of their school fees.
Then you can talk to your state assembly to ask them question why they have made that kind of law. Do you understand? Because the people that are making laws, they are our representatives. So if they make law that we are not comfortable with, we have a duty to challenge them. Because if you look at section 14 of the Constitution, sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom government derives the authority and power to govern.
Because this thing comes in as part of the school fees, the end after they complete it. Secondary, primary school said development is still 100 naira.
Well, if that have been accepted by the parent, 100 naira as part of payment is not a bogus amount if you look at it.
But no, we are not looking at the figure really. We are
But you
looking
are
at the
looking at
propriety of it.
asking
Yes.
pupils to pay taxes.
Because the parent will also pay development levy at the point.
That is for parents to question, and for those that have elected people to office to ask questions about. But as far as tax law is concerned, the tax is based on income. If you are not earning money, you can't pay taxes. So, and I'm telling you that rather than ask people to pay 100 naira, you rather increase the development levy to about 1,000
As against the
100 naira, and then you ensure that those that are supposed to pay taxes, they are the one paying, not disturbing one old woman who is 105 years old in my village, who doesn't even earn money anymore. You understand? So, and then naming of streets in the state capital is for government to look at state capital and look at Abeokuta, for example, wherever you see
Not
so
elsewhere.
street. That's not elsewhere.
Okay.
The state capital, market taxes and levies, where state finance is involved. So if you build market by yourself, nobody can ask you to pay market taxes if state finance is not involved. And then right of occupancy fee, what you call land use charge. But land use charge, I have issue with it.
All right, we'll come to that. We have to take this break for the national news to come up at 10 o'clock. After that, I shall have both Dr. Adeoye and Mr. Bamidele Stephen here with us, looking at the tax regime, its effect on MSMEs, and the ease of doing business. Don't go anywhere.
Clarify about the federal government and then the state. But I was talking about land use charge, for example. You find out that what we have right now in the state is Ministry of Finance going about to get land use charge. And at different fora, I've explained that This is not right. The best way to get land use charge is to get urban and regional planning and then Bureau of Land and Survey work together. You don't even need to go and take measurement. I heard from a friend that some people were in their house taking measurement of the portion of land that have been used. That doesn't show that we know what we're doing. The best way to do that is to go to urban and regional planning and ask them, submit to us the number of houses that have been built, for example, at a given location, say Adeoye, and you have approved plan. They have survey. So in the survey, you have maybe the land is 1,000 square meters, and then there is what we call buildable area. And so you don't even need to go to that house. All you need to do is to raise your assessment and say, based on the town and regional planning record, your land is 1,000 square meters, and then you have built on, say, 400 square meters. So we've seen the land that you have used. So going to measure shows that uh, maybe we don't have record, but we don't know what we're doing. So I see a need for us to harmonize on all of those things. And then you go to government at times, they're asking you to give evidence of certain documents that emanated from the government. That's not good. We are not doing well on our database, and I'm not talking of Ogun State alone, generally in Nigeria. We are not too serious about database. You may pay taxes maybe 2 3 years ago, and then you need to pay another one, and then you just discover that they don't have your file. This also happens at Federal Land Revenue too. They ask you to give evidence of value-added tax that your client has paid over the years. So, and I'm wondering, if I give you a document and you are the one that issued that document, so how do you now confirm that this is original? So, and this does not happen in the Western world. Your taxes for 20 years, just at the click of a button, they can tell you details, receipt number, and all of those things. So I think we need to invest in technology and ensure that we do things right. And of course, collaboration between MDAs. You cannot trespass into what a particular ministry should do. Ministry of Agri, they have responsibility. Town and regional planning, they have responsibility. The best you can do is to work together. Take, for instance, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. They are the one dealing with companies that are coming in. So if you want to do anything that has to do with these companies, you need to go through them and ensure that you collaborate with them. You can't work in isolation. And this we have seen, around many states.
Stephen, with all this said, what effect have you seen on the ease of businesses for the MSMEs?
Um, Again, I would like to also draw from the report from the World Bank IFC that also rated Ogun State very high, because anything we say as development partners must also be evidence based. In 2012 thereabout, Ogun State did woefully in terms of ease of doing business, because the World Bank also came up with certain parameters like how do you obtain construction permits, business registration, enforcing contract, and whatnot. Now, if I'm going to go by what the World Bank has said regarding Ogun State, it looks like there has been now a departure from what we used to have then and now. And coming down now to GIZ, what we have seen, we have recommended that a one-stop shop be put in place to make sure that you improve investors' experience, either local investors or international investors. That has been done. We also looked at areas where we can talk about bringing complaint redress, that you decide to now charge somebody, give him arbitrary levy. It's also possible for the person to come back to you to say, no, I do not want this. This is too much for
Or
me.
I do not deserve
I do not deserve this. Yes, now they have like a complaint redress. So I would say yes, in terms of ease of doing business to some extent. I'm not saying it's all over. What we are saying now is that government should try as much as possible to educate the business community, because these are the people. Each time we keep talking about MSMEs, they are the engine room of growth in Nigeria. But the truth of the matter is that how well are you also taking care of those people? You understand what I'm saying? How well are you taking care? And taking care of them, I mean do you also at some point, for instance, the doctor talk about the market. You go to some market, you look at what you have there is a solid state. You understand? You, for instance, go to a Toko market. If it rains, God help you if you are properly dressed. So these are issues that the government should also be looking at to see for our MSMEs, for when looking at the enabling environment and the ease of doing business. If these guys are complaining that up till now, it looks like there are multiplicity and duplicity of taxes, and we have come to see what some of these guys are complaining of are not necessarily, you understand, multiplicity or duplicity of taxes, then you need to educate them. Where we still have issues that has to do with duplicity and multiplicity of taxes, then that is where the issue of training and retraining themselves, because in terms of jurisdiction, they do not know. Somebody say I'm from Abeokuta South, the other guy say I'm from Abeokuta North, and to a market woman, he cannot differentiate where you're coming from. So now, how do you explain to them? How are they even sure that you are from the government? So these are the issues I think we'll also be looking at.
All right, so don't let us keep us in the wait for too long. You, the listener, let's get what you think about the topic and what you've heard from our two discussants. Dr. Gbenga Adeoye is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. He's also a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, and of course a tax consultant. With him is Mr. Bamidele Stephen, who is also a consultant on the MSMEs, that's the micro, small, and medium enterprises. We go over to you, the listener. Let's get questions from you. 0809 8687344 and 0909 146 9670.
He just re-emphasized the need for database and the need for synergy. So that's okay, not a question, but a comment. Number two is Ayodo. He asked a question that why should you pay taxes, and then the state governors, they use this money to buy a vehicle for police and the rest. Now that goes back to my question, my position on true federalism. And I said one of the taxes that Federal Inland Revenue is allowed to collect is personal income taxes from the salary of police and the army and staff of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and resident of Abuja. And my position, if I have my way to convince Mr. President today, is to say, look, this law is wrong. Because you're talking of the army that reside in my state. You're talking of the police that reside in my state. He's going to drive on my road. He's going to increase the congestion in the morning at the Mortuary and all the places. So it's a problem to us for him to live here. Number two is that he's going to use water here. So there's water shortage. So he's part of the people causing that. Now, this guy has also hit the nail on the head by saying that they are using his money. Look, the responsibility of the number one citizen of the state is to ensure that the security of life and property. And so where the federal government do not provide the needed infrastructure for these people to function, he has a duty to do that. He's the chief security officer of the state. So he's using the money in the right way if he does that. And you find out that if you call police now, the vehicle cannot even go far. You know? And let me be honest with you, in our church, the police around our church, they don't have good vehicle. And we had to sit down together and say, look, we can't be looking at these people. They come to provide security for us. And the church made arrangements. And you can go and verify what I'm telling you now. So the state government is not doing anything wrong by providing security. What we need to do is to amend that law that says the collection of army and police tax is resident with the Federal Inland Revenue, which is federal government. That is wrong. So I think that clears that question. Gafar, he talked about true federalism, and he mentioned that only war can take VAT from the federal government. Actually, we don't need war. All we need is to sit down with intelligent people, people who are patriotic, who are not thinking about themselves, but thinking about the nation. So we don't need war. We just need dialogue. And then he talked about database. Don't forget that value-added tax that we have is a replacement of sales tax that we used to have before. And the military, they were collecting and handing it over to state government in the past. But now, from value-added tax decree of 1993, which is now an act of 2004 now, you now discover that we are sharing federal, state, and the local government. And my question has always been that, look at the Igbo people. They drink alcohol a lot. And you know that there is a problem for you when you take alcohol. Your kidney, your liver, your intestine, your heart is at risk. Now, you now take that VAT, you take it to the federal government, and you share it, you give to somebody in Borono, where the Nigerian brewery vehicle was going, and they killed the driver for bringing alcohol. So, the correct thing to do is to do tax derivation and say, hey, we've taken 100 million from the whole of the federation. How much came from Anambra? How much came from Imo, where they love alcohol? Then take it back to them, you understand, in a percentage. So that's part of what we need to advocate for. You can't take that from Ogun State and you now take it to Zamfara, 100%. So we have to get a benefit for being the person paying the taxes, and that's where derivation comes to play. The last question, yes, tax identification number for companies is being generated by the Federal Inland Revenue. So where your company is bidding for contract with the state government, when they ask for your tax identification for that company, that's the same tax identification you use. But when it has to do with taxes of directors, because I can tell you, you won't take a contract from the state government with tax clearance of the company alone. They will ask for tax clearance of the directors. So these two things, they are not the same. So for the company.
Stephen, do you want to add anything to this?
Yes. The last caller, Larry Judge, also mentioned that we talked about the issue of database. That how is it possible to bring people who are not in TaxNet to the TaxNet? And I think you also did excellently by asking, how is it possible that the government what can government do? I think, just like we said earlier, the government has the responsibility to also do maybe like a snapshot assessment to see those areas where they think they also need to collect more tax, as against now just trying to continually overburden those who are paying tax. So I think for me, it is important the government have a database. As I speak, I'm not too sure if there are or if they have any, but of course, I think they should look much more into this area because it's important.
All right.
Let's go through
The first question is about taxes for agri SMEs. Now, agriculture is agri, medical, and education. They are ventures that have a lot of exemptions from tax payment. But when you talk of taxes payable to states, regardless of the relief that you enjoy at the federal level, you still have to pay personal income taxes. But for the companies that are engaged in education, medical, pharmaceutical, and agriculture, you are exempted from paying value-added tax. And so, if anybody gives you an assessment, if you're running a farm, a poultry, or you are into education or pharmaceutical or medical business, and they give you an assessment and call it value-added tax, just throw it back at the person and tell him to go and read his book. Is that okay? So, but personal taxes, you need to pay. Now, somebody talked about, well, we need to educate tax officials. Yes, we've been talking about that. The next one is whether the government has a right to engage consultants to collect taxes. Well, it will be wrong for me as a tax practitioner to tell you it is wrong. But I will give you a scenario. Currently, the Federal Ministry of Finance came up with a policy on whistleblowing. 5% of money collected from those who have defrauded the nation goes to the whistleblower. And people started shouting. And Kemi Adeoye said, okay, you are shouting about 5% going to somebody. What about the entire money with one person that you don't even know the whereabouts? So when you talk of payment of commission to tax consultant, I'm helping you to get money. It will be foolish of me to do that for you free of charge. Do you understand? You can't get it yourself. So the alternative for you is zero. So if the government, and let me tell you, the politicians, they have this culture of just saying we want to recruit 20,000 workers, 50,000 workers. This is not right. Government is not actually meant to create employment, but they are actually to create an enabling environment. And that's why we are having salary problem in some states in the country, where in some states they've not paid salary for 8 months. So you engage consultants who have the wherewithal, the technology, the experience, the education to get money for you. And you say, look, Get me 10 billion, I give you 1 billion, right? So you pay that 1 billion when I get to the 10 billion. But unfortunately, what you have in some states is that when they get the 10 billion, the 10% does not go to the person. In some other country, you take it at source. So this guy that asked that question, he was referring to Lagos. And I tell you, what Alpha Beta is doing for Lagos State is fantastic. And if you look at Nigeria, Lagos State has the highest tax revenue. And so there is nobody that can have any justification to question why the government is paying a percentage to somebody that helped you to get money.
Dr. Adeoye, he didn't mention the
He
name
didn't
of the
mention
state,
name,
but we
but I'm
appreciate we
informed.
appreciate your explanation
Yes.
and your information about Lagos State. Thank you. All right, we
Yes,
have
I just quickly want to also say something that we, just like you know that I'm not a tax consultant. I work as an enabling environment advisor. And what we do is, if I will go by what Dr. has just said, I would say yes, as a consultant, you also want to remain in business. But we always advocate that you have individuals who are also staff of the revenue service. You can build a capacity to that level of the doctor so that they remain they remain in government, they are working for the state. All these capacity you're talking about that you have, there's nothing stopping even a staff of the local government or the state to also have all this. And now a lot of people will say we're also building an additional layer. You understand? For instance, you make 10 naira, you pay 3 naira out of it. I like the analogy of the whistleblower. But I'm saying in this case, if the state really also want to remain at par with the Western world, just like you said, I know that yes, it is good to use consultant, but however, the state can also build the capacity of 3, 4, 5 of their staff to that level who also replicate this kind of training. So that instead of
do it on their own.
and doing it on their own, so that instead of the 5 to 10%, I mean, without prejudice to
Actually, that's cost of collection.
Anyway. I know that's, of course, I know that's cost of collection.
You will take that in salary
yes,
if you have to recruit all of those staff, and you may even pay more because you have to think about their pension too. But this is one of, and over time, when you grow this revenue, you are not going to need the consultant forever. Do you understand?
They're just consultant for the time being.
Yes, for the time being. And then you build technology, database will improve. So you can't shy away from you having to pay a cost for getting something.
No, absolutely, I agree.
There are
100%.
things that I know as I sit here now that if the state government is ready to give me, I'm not asking for 10%, I want 20%. That if I get to 10 billion, you give me 20%. Do you understand? I will gladly do it for that meantime. And then the government will be happy.
Exactly.
You see the secret of where I've gotten it for you. You plug into it and you improve on it.
No, exactly my point. I'm not, I mean, if I were you, I would also be saying the same thing. I understand what you're saying perfectly. I'm saying that that if you look at it, people have already said this is like creating an additional layer. For instance, if I say, please get us 10 billion naira, I give you 2 billion naira. Now the issue of collection comes to play, which I'm also interested in, because for instance, most of the time, people do not really want to know what it is. In as much as you have given me
the target
to make 10 billion,
then the hungrily go.
You've seen several times that people will just say, okay, give me 3 policemen, give me van, I know what to do. So I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is that in as much as we really want to also improve the performance of our micro, small, and medium enterprises, it is better for me as an OGRS staff that I know that my mother is also selling in Kuto, for instance. If I'm going to collect money, I know not leniency, you might not even post me there, but is it not possible for you to build my capacity to that level? I can also replicate
all right, Stephen, I also know where you are coming from, and the effect on those small and micro business. Okay, Tobi, can we add that?
Can build a gas station on the land they purchase for that purpose. It is not the responsibility of those of us here to talk about. You have the town and regional planning authority who decide what befits a given location. So they handle that. Consult with your architect and builder, and then you approach the right authority. Well, the issue of teachers in private school earning 6,000 or 12,000 being asked to pay taxes. All citizens have to pay taxes, but what we now have in Nigeria is we have what we call consolidated relief, and then 20% of gross income that is being given to you. Now, if your salary is so small, because we have consolidated relief of 200,000 per annum given to everybody.
So it's not a consultant. I thought if your salary is less than the minimum wage,
No.
which is
That's not
1%.
the new rule is you have 20% of gross income plus 200,000.
That's in Peter. What they
Yes,
call Peter.
that's the consolidated relief. Now, if what you earn in a year is not enough for us to take 200,000 and 20% of the gross income, then you will be subjected to minimum tax. You understand? So this tax can be very small. I have clients that are paying for their staff as small as 500 naira a month as taxes. So what you need to do is to be knowledgeable, and this document they are available on the internet. You Google it, you can do your tax, and if you can't do it, then approach consultant. I'm not here to make advert, but approach professionals, chartered accountant, tax practitioners who can guide you. And you can even approach the tax office. If you are sincere, you are open, they will actually give you assessment.
All right, Tobi.
That is small.
Yes.
Okay. Let me start with Ariwoko. He mentioned religious organization. Well, in Nigeria, there is no law that forbids individuals from paying taxes. And that's where people are getting it wrong. Whether you are a pastor or you are imam or whatever, evangelist, prophet, general overseer, all citizens are to pay taxes, whether you're a pastor. That is based on the income that you earn from the church. So it is the responsibility of all pastors to declare their income and pay taxes accordingly. If you get 5 million as salary per month, your taxes will be based on 60 million per annum. You'll get that. So he talked about in America, where in the Obama era, where you tax the rich. Actually, there is a reform going on currently by the Ministry of Finance and Federal Inland Revenue, where there is going to be introduction of luxury taxes. If you have a private jet, and if you like to drink champagne, you like to drive exotic cars, you like to build your houses on water, so you are going to be paying taxes on this. So
if you build your house on a fruit island,
so
either banana or pineapple,
yes,
okay.
you will be covered under this.
Okay.
This one in particular, very interesting one. It says, is it right for the Inland Revenue Service to determine salaries that companies and services should earn in payments of taxes?
Okay.
The other one, Yadila Pinchi says, it is my belief that only true popularity of Lunars are tax heavy. Other states should receive VAT. Case.
All right. Can you take the penultimate one? That,
Yes.
is it right for IRS to just look at you and say,
Yes.
okay,
The rule in tax is a principle that is based on expenses that are wholly, reasonable, exclusively, and necessarily incurred for the purpose of the business. And so, tax authority have a right to allow or disallow expenses that are suspicious. And if they feel that this expenses is not wholly, I mean wholly, not Holy, Wholly, wholly, that is completely, reasonably, necessarily, and exclusively incurred for the purpose of the business. So, for example, if you just buy flight tickets, for example, I have 2 children, and then I am the CEO of a company, and then we fly maybe to Atlanta, and then our ticket is 1 million per person, 4 million. Now, and you just push that director's emolument, and that your children, they are not part of the company, your cousin is also involved. The tax authority have a right to look at it and say, hey, give us the breakdown of this figure you call salary. And then any expenses that is suspicious not to have been incurred wholly, reasonably, necessarily, and exclusively incurred for the purpose of the business. Now, reasonability is a question of personal judgment. Now, if you are coming from Kuto roundabout and you are coming to Rock City, and you are telling me that the cost of transportation to this place is 10,000 naira, it's unreasonable. Now, if you have to come from my office, for example, at Okelewu to this place, and you have to fly in a chopper to this place, it is unnecessary. You get that point? Now, if I have to come to this place and on my way, I stop over at parking, I stop over at this Obasanjo OPL, and then stop over at Surulere and Etamala, and all of this stopover, I added the expenses to my journey to this place. That expenses is not wholly incurred for the purpose of this journey. So, and then we'll talk about necessity, reasonability, exclusively and wholly. They are similar. I am to come here, and then after leaving this place, I went to my house, stop over there for 1 hour. After that, I visited a friend. Now, it's not exclusively for the purpose of my trip here. So, but for anybody to tell you that you cannot earn a given salary, no, there's no law justifying that. The only thing that Federal Inland Revenue can do is to suspect that these expenses is not wholly, reasonably, and exclusively.
Since that is also determined by individual discretion, is a very wide power.
Not discretion, not discretion. What determines discretion is knowledge and information. You are here now, and I tell you from Kuto to this place is 10,000. You just need to go to the market and ask question. How much is a taxi drop? Even if there will be no other passenger in the vehicle. Is it 2,000 or 1,000? Okay, so the tax authority will say, this 10,000 is too much. Exactly.
Okay. Bamidele, you want to add something to it?
For me, I quickly just want to say, I know that we have a Chambers of Commerce and Industry here in Abeokuta. It is their responsibility, and I think we will be relating with them to also let the business community know some of these things that we are hearing now. Because it will interest you to know that some of these guys don't even know anything as regards to the administration of taxes in Ogun State. And for me, just like we were discussing during the break, that if you are ignorant, that is an ample opportunity for the people to also now want to, possibly overtax you. So I think it is their responsibility to also educate, apart from the OJRS.
All right, thank you. I must stop here. We must end it. I appreciate everybody who's been a part of it, either via the SMS, the Twitter, or even via the telephone call. And of course, Bamidele Stephen, a consultant to the MSMEs, and of course, Dr. Femi Adeoye, fellow Gbenga Adeoye, fellow Institute of Chartered Accountants and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. I say thank you for the
Pleasure.
Dele Ayodo is my name. God bless you all. God bless Nigeria, and God bless